All right. Well, I did just get back from Japan.
Yep.
And I thought it would be nice to pick, a nice, exciting topic related to Japan. And one thing that was going through my head a lot while I was there, because we actually went out into the countryside, and I've never done that before. I've been, or at least not in like mainland Japan. I've been to Hokkaido, and I've done a little road trip like while it's snowing. And I've been to Tokyo, but I've never been into like the countryside that you kind of see.
Do you
in
consider
media,
yourself
stuff like
an
that.
honorary?
No, I'm basically
Nihongo?
Japanese. we were calling Nick Yingling the chopped huzz the entire time, if you know what that means, in Japanese the whole time we were there. We'll move on from that. Anyway, I think
No idea what he means.
Yeah.
exactly a big thing that a big headline that I have seen in our media in recent years is about how you can get free houses in Japan.
Yes.
Anyone can buy one. Literally $1 or $0 homes. And the catch being that these homes are often like very, broken down, old, abandoned. But it did make me want to look a little more into like why housing in Japan is so relatively cheap at a time when like everywhere in the world, right? Like developed countries, big cities, prices of real estate are generally going up. Like people are getting priced out of living places. And that's not like an American thing necessarily. That's
like Canada, Australia,
all UK.
UK.
It's all over the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the first thing I took a look at was as you've explained to me in the past, is Japan had this gigantic asset bubble that like largely included real estate. When their economy was exploding, they went through this huge inflationary period of assets in the country, and then I think it was in like
89.
92 was like when it like really crashed.
He peaked in 89.
So
Wait, can I say a fun stat?
yeah.
In 89, at the peak of the bubble, the land around the Imperial Palace in Tokyo was worth more than all the real estate in California. Like you could
What?
own California for less than they had one of the biggest real estate bubbles in human history. It was crazy.
Wow.
We
Yeah.
stayed at a hotel right next to the Imperial Palace, and have you considered that it's really nice? So-
Yeah.
This is you trading for California with
And
Ronald
have you
Reagan.
been to Stockton? It's not that nice.
Stockton is just not as good as the Imperial Palace. And one like little video I watched as an example is even on the outskirts of Tokyo, which is like a major city, right? The most populous city in the world by like metro area population. On the outskirts of Tokyo, there are large 1,500 square foot family homes that might cost like $70,000. And compared to, what we would be paying in LA,
That's
right?
crazy. You
That's
couldn't-
freaking.
LA is
You couldn't park in LA for
Right.
$70,000.
I believe the median price for a home in LA is like 1.1 million.
Yeah, I think it passed the mill. so-
Median?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's what I heard too. I think
That's actually, I didn't know
I
it
need
was
to
more
look
than
up
a
the exact
million
number,
now.
but I know because it was in comparison. It was actually from the book Abundance by Ezra Klein, which we'll probably talk about next week. But talking about how the price of a home in America is just obscenely overpriced, at least in most of the like blue cities right now.
the metro areas.
Right,
yeah.
the metro areas. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of factors, and I'll kind of layer this into two main things that I saw. So for rural Japan, where you could get these abandoned houses, right? There is a decline in population. Like as time has passed, really concentrated movement of people from rural areas of Japan into cities, just like a lot of the developed world is going through in general, right? Like that's a general population movement that happens. But Japan, it happened earlier and more aggressively. And that, on top of that, really low birth rate.
Really low. Bro.
And one of the lowest in the world. On top of this, Japan also isn't really changing its mind about immigration, at least not at a
No.
rate that matters. Like they're not welcoming in or making big efforts to get large amounts of foreigners in the country to sort of supplement the population, right?
So real quick on that. I looked into a little bit on their immigration changes.
Yeah.
My understanding is it used to basically be zero. Like nobody
Yeah.
comes in. This is Japan only. And then the past few years they've opened it up a lot. But are you saying that a lot is just relative?
A lot is relative.
Okay.
It's not increasing in any meaningful way. And
Okay.
I asked a friend while we were there who's lived there for a long time, like, what is young people's perspective on letting more immigrants in to like help deal with these problems? And this applies to a lot of issues, not just like immigration, housing, or like whatever economic problems Japan is dealing with.
Yeah.
He said young people and people in Japan in general are just very, very apathetic about politics. It isn't something you publicly engage in general. And I think it's part of a general cultural like way of like how people socialize. It'd be very weird for you to talk to strangers about your honest opinions about things in the first place.
Interesting.
But then decoupling from that, I think politics is like particularly sensitive, and there isn't a culture of being attentive and involved in politics in the way that it dominates discussion in America in particular, but maybe the West in a larger sense. So basically in the rural areas, they're dealing with this problems like their supply is like increasing just by proxy of it not being used anymore.
Right.
And because there's no demand and nobody is moving to these rural areas, it basically just boils down to that. And because of that, you have these really low home prices. Like even a nice thing on the outside, like I think the misleading part of the free house is that those ones aren't nice. It's like they aren't well kept. You would have to put a lot of work into it. There are stories of Americans, because foreigners can buy property and land in Japan freely. There's like no restrictions on that. Foreigners can buy those properties. And there are stories of, for instance, Americans going and getting one of these free homes. But the amount of work that you have to put into it to make it like livable.
But I heard you
and
can't
nice.
buy it unless you move there. Like you can't. I couldn't like make an investment.
I think
portfolio of
I think
one-
for the free ones, my loose understanding is for that specific program that gives out the free ones you do. But if we wanted to buy that $70,000 apartment or the like a $30,000 apartment, we would be able to buy that or like the land.
It doesn't come with like a permanent residence. So you buy the property, but it's not like you can then just roll into Japan and you live there now.
Yeah.
So you still have to go through the arduous process of getting approved for a visa and then permanent residency, which is usually 10 years of living there.
My friend who immigrated there was talking about how if he got kicked out, he wouldn't lose the asset of like the home he owns or the land.
I see. So you go there for 6 months. So all I have to do is keep going there every 6 months and add to my housing portfolio.
I don't even know
in a few years on the BlackRock
in general. In general, I think, like I said, I think the rules might be different for those like free or like near free homes.
Yeah.
But if you were just buying like a nice big home that was like pretty expensive in Tokyo, like you could just buy that and not live there.
Right.
You guys want to buy like a $1 home in the countryside and do an episode there?
Oh,
Like it's just a one-time studio.
That would be so sick
for the podcast.
Just
Dude,
our Japan studio.
No, but
we're already thinking so big.
Yeah.
On this small town, and they're like, we're dying and we're running out of people. And then we have 3 new immigrants that are coming to help turn things around, and we show up for one
What?
day.
Record a podcast. They see us dunking our faces in ice water, and then we leave.
Toss the bottle on the ground and then
I
fly
would
out.
hate us. I would hate
Yeah,
us
that
so
would be-
much.
That's like Logan Paul round 2 for sure.
I saw a few things that just related to the countryside stuff, which I thought were interesting because I was just looking into this a little bit. Apparently, 647 of Japan's towns and villages have been designated as depopulated areas. 60% of Japan, of the land area, is now depopulated areas where it's like there are not enough people there and they're basically losing support. And then as part of that, so all these people just over the past like 20 years, there's been this, or I mean decades, but it's increased, I guess, even more in the last 20 years, that all these people are moving from the countryside to the city, right? And so then the railroads in the countries are having to close stations. So JR Hokkaido closed 18 stations. This was last year, I believe 2024 it would be, due to low passenger demand. JR West
That's
is hurting.
why America was smart to do no trains.
No trains. We got it.
We thought
figured
it
it
out.
out. Yes.
We knew there'd be a crisis.
I know.
That way, when
long-term.
we stop having
He was
babies,
really planning for that. We're just thinking
we're
even
long-term
further
thinkers.
ahead.
Yeah.
and then this like really kind of mind fucked me. A shift from trains to buses doesn't work because some 40% of the vehicular bridges in Japan are reaching age 50, and the local governments don't have the budget to repair them. So they're just forced to ban their use.
Yes.
And so countrysides are also becoming less accessible as the bridges are no longer becoming usable. And then there isn't the people or the budget to repair them. So the countryside, it's like this spiral. So yeah, you can go get one of these, $10,000 houses, but it might be hours away by car from a train station,
So I'm a bit of a Japan expert. Why don't they simply use the mechs or the mech suits that they've got?
Oh,
I don't. Is that not
Well,
in the budget or was?
Well, Britannia is still
I
winning
see.
the war,
I see.
and so
So
most of them are in
They're
combat
in
right
combat.
now.
It's tough. It's
a
tough.
rationing
Once
system.
Japan is in peacetime,
They
the
can go
mech
to-
soldiers will return home and they will build the bridges.
You know what's interesting is not just Japan. So I looked at this too. Italy is going through pretty much bar for bar the same
Really?
thing. They're a little more open to immigration, but like you can get a $0, $1 house in Italy in the countryside where anything
Huh.
outside of the city, it's like they have an aging population with not enough young people. People are leaving the small towns. If you go live there, they'll basically give you your house for free.
So
Dude.
I was going to bring up that trend as well
Yeah.
because my friend showed me this in Sweden, rural areas in Sweden. It's the same thing. You can get a pretty nice large home in like a rural part of Sweden for maybe like $30,000 to $50,000 in like pretty good condition, lovely location, and same mechanisms behind it. Basically, just like everybody needs to move or wants to move to the city.
So like for an average person, that's not a good deal still because you're so isolated and the
Yeah.
town is dying. But I'm wondering when someone's gonna flip and people are gonna move as flocks. Like if you had 8 of your friends and their families, or you all decide we're just gonna
Well,
take over the small
This
town.
is the
You could get insane real estate.
this is the LA influencer problem that we
Yes.
Yeah.
we talked
Yes,
about.
actually, this is a good example.
about
Yeah.
how a bunch of people in LA that do
I
YouTube
would
here.
actually describe. I hate Los Angeles for the record.
Mm-mm.
9 out of 10 people that I have talked to, I've probably talked to 30 or 40 content creators in LA about this,
Yeah.
have said, "Oh, I hate LA. I'm only here because everybody else is here."
Exactly.
But all of us say that, and nobody leaves.
But
Not me.
everybody has to move at
Not
once
me.
Yes.
because it's
Yeah.
the
LA
value of
strong.
being in the same place.
you
together.
like it. There's a few people who
You're
like it.
you're the
LA
he said
strong.
9 out of 10 9 out of 10 dentists. You're the dentist saying that the toothpaste doesn't work.
Yeah, you don't need toothpaste.
You don't need toothpaste.
Rub banana peels on
But
your
it-
teeth.
I use
Just-
this
Yeah.
and I use mouth tape, and my teeth are pearly.
But I do think it's really interesting that this is like so apparent in other countries as well because that gets talked about less. Like
Yeah.
Japan is the country that has the headline so often. I think because the problem is so much more aggressive and it's been building for longer.